interviewing Ray Barrett first, who is from Upper Island, Cove, and is 71. She has 4 brothers and 1 sister. Miss Barrett is going to tell us about games and leisure activities for girls.
When we done this interview, we asked such questions as, what were some games you played as kids? What was your favorite game? What game was most common to you and your friends? What game did you like the most? What did you enjoy doing with your family? Our responses helped us learn what Miss Barrett done as a young girl and what she enjoyed doing the most. She really enjoyed skating. Her and her friends used to go out on the pond in the winter time when it froze over. In the summer, they liked to go swimming, especially when it was very warm. Now, my grandmother never learned to swim very well because she was always too afraid to actually swim because it was too cold. Her favorite game as a child was playing Cobs. Today, Cobs is known as house. They used to take their toys, their dolls, and their parents' old cutlery and dishes to play. They used to make their own houses and get their fathers to build their houses for them. They also used to like playing roles such as the mother, the baby, and those things to help them feel responsible and older. The most common game for them was buttons. Buttons is what they used to play when they used to get a group of friends together, where you go outside and you dig a medium-sized hole in the ground. You and your friends line up a few feet away from the hole with your buttons in your hand. After you line up, you try to throw them into the hole, and whoever gets it in the hole won the rest of the buttons. If no one got their buttons in, then you'd go to your button and try to flick them in with your thumb, and then, if you got it in, then you won the buttons. They also used to play this with pennies, if they could, but most of the time they couldn't because they used to try to keep their pennies. My grandmother's favorite thing to do with her family was decorating at Christmas time. They used to like decorating their trees and their house. Believe it or not, they used to put apples on the trees. Now, my grandmother grew up with many brothers and just 1 sister, so every time that they would look at the tree, there'd be a bite taken out of the apple. Today, we don't do these things. We just put different decorations on, such as garland and the little balls. But they used to put apples, which I find very creative. Another game that my grandmother used to enjoy playing was skipping. The only time that they get an opportunity to play this game was if they found an old piece of rope lying around. They used to see who could jump for the longest or who could jump the most amount of times. She really enjoyed this game because she was a very athletic lady and loved hanging out with her friends. Another game that they used to play was leapfrog. This one was quite simple, and the only thing that you needed was yourselves. A bunch of friends would get together, get in a row, and get down on their knees. They'd then jump over each other's shoulders and create a bigger line. Another game they would play was dress up. My grandmother loved this game because what they would do, they would get in their mother's or each other's clothes and just change them around and play different role game scenarios. What was some of the most common games that you guys used to play?
The most common games we played, I'd say, would be hopscotch. All you needed was a piece of, we didn't have chalk, all we had was a piece of rock, and we'd draw an hopscotch, or maybe a stick if it was out, naturally to be in the road anyway. And we'd draw out a hopscotch, and we'd get a nice smooth rock, and that's what most of the girls played anyway, was hopscotch. And like in the summertime, of course, I forgot we used to go swimming. When the beach was only probably 5 minutes from my home, and we always played in the beach and swam in the salt water. Now, it was pretty cold, you didn't stay in it very long. And I never did learn to swim because the water was too cold. But there's lots of things we did. We'd play out on the beach. We used to enjoy playing out on the beach too.
What was some of the things that you used to do when you got home from school?
Well, when I got home from school, I wasn't like most kids. Of course, I had to go home and help my mum with all the housework because my mum was a crippled woman. She was always crippled. And when we got old enough to do a little bit of work around the house, we had to help her. So, well, some days I went out and played with the girls, but most of the time I went home and helped her bring in the clothes from the line or do a bit of ironing or help her with supper and things like that.
That was very nice of you. What were some of the things that you used to do with your family when you guys had any spare time?
Well, we used to get together and they'd tell jokes and tell funny old stories. I can't remember them now, but that's all we did really, was getting and sometimes one of the boys or the girls would have a guitar and we'd sing a few songs. And
the next person we're going to interview is Kelsey's grandfather, Ray Barrett. He is 72 and he's from Bishop's Cove. He has 3 brothers and 4 sisters. Mr. Barrett is going to tell us about games and leisure time activities for boys.
We just heard some of the things that the girls used to do for games and their leisure time. What were some of the things that the boys used to do?
We played a lot in the beach by the salt water because it was fairly close. We used to play, well, a game we used to call chasers. I guess now it's called tag. But just run around, somebody chasing you, trying to catch you. We played a lot of road hockey, just with a tin can, of course, sneakers on your feet. Used to do a lot of, used to be a lot of fences, and they were just built out of 2x4, so we'd try to walk along, see who could walk the farthest on the 2x4, and that's 2x4 on an edge, not on a flat. We used to throw rocks in the ocean, see who could throw the rocks the farthest.
For hockey, I'm sure you guys didn't have hockey sticks back then. What would you guys use for the sticks?
Well, we used to have sticks, but it was homemade sticks. So we'd just nail two pieces of board together.
Were there any other games that, say, we used to play as a kid that you guys play now?
Probably not. No, we used to pitch buttons and pennies. Sometimes we'd have a little nail in the ground or a little hole in the ground, and you'd pitch them from a certain distance. I don't know what it was, but everybody had pitched their penny, and then you'd go over and see if you could flick it in the little hole, or if you couldn't, whoever was the closest would win the pennies.
When you came home from school, what were some of the chores and other things that you had to do before you got the leisure time?
Well, we had to feed animals, usually sheep, pigs, cows, and we'd have to bring water. We'd have to make splits so you could light the fire the next morning, because remember there was no, or at least we didn't have an oil stove or anything, so we had to carry water like from the well.
I know you were a young boy growing up down on Bishop's Cove shore, so did you ever like to spend some time out on the water?
I did, yes. Like the leisure time really was only on maybe a Sunday, but during the summer months anyway, and this wasn't school time of course, but we had to go fishing, and you know, that was a serious business. It wasn't leisure.
Thank you.